Hiya crafty folks, Amy here with Amy's Wares, and I have more copic coloring for the lazy crafter. So this vid is all about coloring. If that's not your jam, then maybe move on to a different video in my lineup. But I'm just showing you some basic stamping here so we can get started on coloring. I have this adorable little stamp set that I'm taking on its maiden voyage from My Favorite Things. It's got all these cutie patootie little fruit critters. It's pretty random, but I love random. So I'm just going to lay these out on the lower half of this piece of cardstock, and I'm going to stamp it with Gina K amalgam ink. Now this ink is safe for copic coloring. If you're not familiar or don't know what black ink to use, then just use either Memento Tuxedo Black or something that is copic or alcohol marker friendly, like Gina K amalgam ink. And those are usually my two go-tos. So here I'm showing you I have this awesome hex chart from Sandy Allnock. That's the way I keep track of the various copic colors that I have and the ones that I don't. Just showing you, but I will do a picture at the end as well of all the markers that I ended up using if you want to do a screenshot of the colors that I used. But basically I'm just going to go through and color for you in this video. My style is not perfect. I'm not a pro. I call myself a bit of a lazy crafter just because I don't like to spend a whole lot of time blending back and forth. I just simply don't have the patience for it. I love it when other people do it, but it's not usually my jam. So you'll see here, I do have the video sped up a little bit for the sake of brevity, but you can see my style is kind of messy and quick. So if you've watched any of my other videos, you know I don't like to spend a lot of time on anything usually. I like to kind of move on to the next. So blame my attention span for that, or I don't know, what have you, but I just don't have it in me to spend that much time. So I'm just kind of scribbling down some color. I tend to start with the lightest color first and then move on to the dark at the end. Now I know a lot of people do that differently. Every once in a while I might start with the dark, but I tend to, I don't know, kind of take it over with the dark if I do that. So that's just not usually my preference, but color whatever way works for you. And as you can see with the colors that I picked for the selection, I have 2, maybe 3 of a color family for each kind of fruit. So I kind of looked at, you know, the fruit and I thought, oh, well, I want to make the orange green. So I grabbed 2 or 3 greens. Now some of these are, you know, more pink into red, and you'll see I have more of a variation. And that's because I'm going to be coloring more than one fruit in that color scheme, and I wanted to have a little bit of variation from one fruit to the next. But overall I don't have a whole lot of colors that I'm using, and I find that less is more, I guess. It just makes it easier for me if I just kind of pick out these colors in the beginning based on, you know, each fruit, like, oh, this pineapple, I'm going to need this sort of yellow and one that's almost like orange for the darker portion and things like that. So that's kind of how my mind works in terms of picking out colors, which I'm sure is probably an intimidation factor, especially with regard to Copics and their price point and everything like that. It's really hard to know what colors to choose and what you actually need. So I really recommend buying that hex chart from Sandy Allnock. It's really helped me out a lot. Just having that visual aid to see what colors are kind of, you know, what I want to incorporate into my design. And then also just as I build my collection to kind of really see like, you know, that color is actually quite close to this one that I already have. Do I really need that one? And it's really helpful in that way. So I think if you struggle at all with Copics, then definitely get that hex chart, and it'll help you kind of break down, you know, what works for you in terms of your collection and what you want to color with. So I apologize if you heard my alarm going off on my phone. I had to quick turn that off. But here I had, I think, the most fun coloring this little watermelon. I thought it was really sweet. So you could see I started with more of a pink color on that one and then moved into the red. So then that gives it, you know, kind of a different feel from the strawberry. But again, just very scribbly, the alcohol ink really does kind of settle in. So even though I'm really messy with my scribbling, it does still kind of blend the more that you saturate the cardstock. So it's more just a matter of, you know, finding a cardstock that works for you. And, you know, just getting to know the Copics. Just keep it simple to start. Just pick, you know, a couple colors. I would say think about the stuff you tend to color. Think about the colors you tend to gravitate towards, and you'd be surprised how often we're so habitual and we just tend to go back to those same colors time and time again. So just take a look at the chart and see, you know, what colors you're likely to use, and then just pick a couple. You know, you got this apple, pick a dark, pick a light, or if you're feeling, you know, extra jazzy, pick 3 colors like I have here. And then as you can see, I'm literally just scribbling, going back and forth from dark to light, and then I usually go back to the light at the end just to kind of saturate the paper further and blend it out a little bit more. But this scribbly look is my style. It's kind of how I color everything. It may not be for you. If you want more of an even blend, then, you know, take more time and go back and forth and really build up those layers, and it will, you know, flatten out more for you. But this is just a nice option if you don't want to spend a lot of time with it, or you don't have the patience to spend a lot of time with it, then maybe just kind of let it look a little bit more graphic. I tend to pick stamps that look a little bit more on the graphic side anyway, so it kind of suits my style to color like this. But just don't be intimidated by them. If you're nervous about the price point, which is totally valid, then start with, you know, a cheaper set of alcohol markers and give them a try and see if you even like the medium before you make the investment. That's actually what I did. I started with a cheaper set, and I really didn't think I liked coloring with alcohol markers. I figured that it wasn't going to be my jam, but I actually liked it enough where I did end up building up to the point where I started to collect Copics, because I felt it was a good investment for me. But maybe you'll play with a cheaper set and be like, no, this isn't my jam at all. I like, you know, watercolor markers, or I like colored pencils, or I just like stamping. So just maybe before you make the investment, start with a cheaper set. I can link, if it's still available, I can't even think of the name of it. I can link the less expensive markers that I used, and also some that I got for my daughter that are great, that are at a cheaper price point if you just want to give it a try and see if you even like coloring with alcohol markers. But don't let them intimidate you. Don't think you have to have 6 colors of red to color a cherry. It doesn't have to be that complicated. It's meant to be fun. So I hope this style of coloring, my messy sort of lazy crafter style of coloring, maybe encourages you a little bit to give it a try and, you know, not overthink it and not worry about it. So here I'm just kind of, you know, using other colors to fill in the little flag and the little hat and the other cool little components. But that basically is going to finish up this coloring. I do end up coloring off screen the other half of the critters. A couple things to note: you may have seen me use a blending brush. The blender is the 0, and it's not really a blender. Here we go. I'm showing it to you right here. It's kind of misleading in the name because it doesn't really blend colors together. I think of it more as an eraser. So as you can see in my haste, I kind of went outside the lines, which is really easy to do with red in particular. So if you're working with red, it tends to be really juicy, and it's one of the hardest to fix your mistakes. So take your time with the red. Don't be like me. And maybe even don't go up right exactly to the edge. Maybe leave a little bit of a white line before the edge, which not only gives you a cool highlight effect, but also keeps you from coming outside the lines. But that blending tool, you can kind of use it like an eraser and come back multiple times and kind of just shove that ink farther back, or kind of erase it a little bit, or push it deeper into the cardstock. So think of it more like an eraser rather than a blending tool. And then here I have a Sakura gel pen. This is definitely a must-have if you're working with Copics, just because you can add highlights to your design, and it really does add so much. As you can see, I'm going to come in on the little orange and on the little cherries that have glasses, and you can add like a little glint, like it would be a highlight on the lens of the glasses. And you definitely want something like this because it just adds so much to your design. Or if you want to add little polka dots to something or little stripes, you can really kind of customize what you're working on, and it's just such a handy tool to have in your stash. I just love that. See, I'm putting in the highlights and the glasses. Super cute and easy. So that's how I'm gonna finish these off. Now I'm not gonna have any finished cards, but you will see I don't have the coordinating dies. Kind of thinking I might need to get them, especially for that cherry, for the cutout in the middle. But as you can see here, I left my stamps in my misti, and the benefit of that I'm showing you here is then I can come back in and stamp over it when I'm done with a pigment ink. Now this pigment ink is called VersaFine Clair Nocturne, and it is my absolute favorite deep, rich black ink, but you can't use it for copic coloring. You can use it after you're done coloring, but if you tried to use it for your initial stamping, it would smear all over the place because it does not get along with copics. So if you want that super dark black when you're done, then leave your stamps in your positioner and come back in and stamp it with whatever you want when you're done coloring. So that's just a little tip. But you can see I did color all of them, finishing it up off screen. And here is a photo of all the colors that I end up using. If you want to take a screenshot, that does not include the one that I discovered was dry as I was trying to color with it. So I'm just going to cut these in half, and then I'm going to fussy cut out half of them and put them in my storage system here. So I used those one scissors to cut it, but then I remembered, no, those aren't my fussy cutting scissors. So these are my little, I forget what they're called. I don't know, bumblebee something. I don't remember. I'll link them in the video description box below. But these are my favorite fussy cutting scissors. Now the tip with fussy cutting is you want to turn the paper, not your scissors. So it really helps you get a smoother, more even cut. And it allows the process just to go so much better. It'll end up looking better in the long run, and you'll have better results. So turn the paper, not your scissors, then you won't tire out your hand so much. So if you hate fussy cutting, then maybe invest in the coordinating dies, or if you have like one of those Brother Scan and Cuts or something like that. I don't have one of those, but I don't hate fussy cutting. I find it quite cathartic. So that's just a little tip if you end up doing that. But here, the most satisfying part of all, since I'm not making a card out of it, I'm going to add it to my critter book. So this is my storage solution for my critters. They're stamped and colored and either die cut or fussy cut out. And I have these little baseball pockets. These have little lips on them to help hold the critters in place. But this is where I store all my colored goodness here. So this is my solution when I want to batch a bunch of cards. I can come in and figure out whatever little cutie critter will go with my design and what I have in mind. And this is what works for me. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this inspired you to give alcohol markers a try or not be intimidated by them if you already have them. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me comments. I'm happy to help in whatever way I can. And I hope you liked the vid. I'll check you next time. Bye.